So Internicola Law Firm is our franchise law firm. We help businesses franchise and existing franchisors. We represent restaurant franchise companies throughout the country. Our development company is called Good Spark, and that is that helps business owners not only franchise their business, but navigate the franchise world through coaching, mastermind groups, community, and services, franchise sales, franchise development. So it's an end-to-end solution from point A to becoming a franchisor, selling franchises and growing, right? And we're on different boards of franchise companies. So that's what we do here. And then we have our Win Big at Franchising podcast, which if you go to our YouTube channel, it's Internicola Law Firm, or it's at Entrepreneurs Kick Ass, right? So that's where all of our stuff lives.
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest partner at the Internicola Law Firm and host of the Win Big at Franchising podcast, Charles Internicola. My man, Charles, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I am ready to go.
Dude, I'm psyched to be here. I'm psyched to be here. So I discovered your law firm through Jason Sobanowski. I hope I'm saying that last name correctly. From Haven Hot Chicken, and I actually got to talk to him and his other partners. I love what they're doing over there at Haven Hot Chicken. He just in conversation mentioned your law firm and how supportive and how helpful you've been. And whenever I hear these little clues, like I write it down and I follow up. Like these are the people I want to talk to. So I reached out. Your team was gracious enough to set up this interview, and I cannot wait to get into it. I know it's going to be good, man. I listened to the How to Franchise Your Business 7 Steps in preparation of today's conversation, and like you blew my mind, man. So like I know you're a wealth of knowledge with this stuff. I can't wait to dive into who you are and what your business is all about. Let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
You know what? It's on all our t-shirts, which is Entrepreneurs Kick Ass, right? Which gets beyond anything else. Our clients are entrepreneurs. We're entrepreneurs. I mean, our team itself, it's always about continuous improvement. But if there's one thing that represents our team, it's that. Yeah.
Get into you said it, like continuous improvement, but like why are entrepreneurs so important?
Look, you mentioned Haven Hot Chicken, and whether it's restaurant industry, small business, entrepreneurs are fueling the nation, right? Beyond all the nonsense with politicians, entrepreneurs are out there building businesses, taking risks, and employing people, right? It's amazing things. It's an amazing journey. And so that's the best part about what we get to do, get to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that excites me about the work I'm doing and studying successful restaurateurs. My job is to look for patterns. And one of the patterns is, to be successful as a restaurateur, one of the most grueling industries to get into. It's really people who create opportunity for others, who lift others up, who find ways to serve, to be of value. And I think entrepreneurs are out there literally changing the world. You think of a country like the United States that's based off of free market and entrepreneurism. It's no wonder why we're leaders in the world. It's what are you thinking as I say that?
Yes, right, with entrepreneurs. But if you dive into the restaurant industry itself, its competitiveness, there is a pattern when you see success in the restaurant industry. You see entrepreneurs that many times our clients in the restaurant industry, they've done a bunch of other things, came from investment banking, came from other industries, and they're involved in their restaurant, growing locations, building businesses. So it's pure entrepreneurship. And if you're not careful, you get your ass kicked. And when you do it right, create amazing things. And so, it's amazing. It's creation, right? As opposed to so many other things you see in life where I don't know if people are really creating anything or improving lives.
Yeah. So you have the law firm.
Yeah.
Internicola Law Firm. And you also have your podcast. And you also have a YouTube channel. You have Good Sparks Franchise Growth Accelerator. What else you got going on over here? I'm looking around. You got all these the branding out. Paint the picture of the portfolio.
So at its core, our team, lawyers, franchise developers, we're entrepreneurs, and we're in the trenches. Our team, we've owned franchise companies, sold them. And along the way in our journey, we learned a number of things, not unlike restaurants, which is number one, if we're going to really help our clients, if we're going to really accelerate in the marketplace, do one thing. And for us, all that is franchising. We work with businesses when they franchise, and we provide ongoing support. So our clients are anything from startups to 200 units plus, right? And then along the way, as you go through your core values, your strategic planning, the questions are always how, one of our core values, how we can help and do more. And that's led to different things. Over the years, we've developed technology support for our clients when it comes to franchise compliance. And then recently we launched Good Spark, which is a growth accelerator. We saw a need where, restaurant owners, other business owners enter the franchise world. They don't know where to turn. So a lot of coaching programs, master classes, and also solutions to get them to market and help them sell their franchises.
Yeah, that's something I really want to talk about today. Like how to sell a franchise. I think that's the biggest reason. Like when you say sell a franchise, are you talking about selling the actual rights to the franchise, or just selling to franchisees?
Right, selling to franchisees.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why we create systems and processes in our business so it can be sold. But the franchise model is just a way to accelerate that and to scale it like crazy. It's probably more than that. I saw a little look on your face.
What I was doing, I was thinking what's interesting is, we have clients in different industries, right? Could be home service-based brands, retail, and of course, a significant amount of restaurants. And as you were speaking, I was reflecting on why are restaurant franchisors so system focused? And the reality is the marketplace is very difficult. Before they ever get to franchising, the brands that stand out, they have their systems and processes in place.
Yeah. So, you said something else, actually now you just struck another thought. Without a doubt, one of the most interesting things I've seen, you wouldn't expect it, but whenever I talk to somebody who's in the restaurant industry and they were previously an engineer, they crush it. Yeah. I'm like, when I find out somebody was an engineer before opening their restaurants, I'm like, oh man, I know this is going to be a good one. Having that engineer mind, that systems, Six Sigma, approach to life, they just do so well. You said something else that really resonated with me. Do one thing. So for you, the one thing is franchising. You think of doctors and lawyers, right? Doctors, they'll specialize in a body part, right? Mm-hmm. And franchise or lawyers will specialize in a type of law or a segment of law. What does one thing look like for restaurant owners?
Restaurant owners in franchising or restaurant owners in
both?
Well, I mean, again, outside looking in, and I've seen the success stories. For me, for restaurant owners, really comes down to unit economics and operations. Those become critical factors. And ironically, when we see franchise brands that succeed, it's the same thing.
So when you say unit economics, are you talking about how to put money out of one location? So that's the one thing?
I think so. I mean, if you can get the unit economics right, your gross sales, your profitability, then you're communicating and telegraphing a bunch of other things you're doing right? Which is customer attraction, customer satisfaction, employee productivity, operations, control of supply chain, right? You have all these factors coming into play. So to me, the ultimate indicator is that profitability in those sales, year-over-year sales and things like that.
So you said unit operations, per unit operations. What was the other thing? Location?
I don't know what sometimes I don't even know what I say.
I hear you. I'm guilty of the same thing. But when I think of one thing, let's use Haven Hot Chicken as an example.
Right.
What's their one thing?
So it's them. It's the brothers, right? It's the founders of that. And, that one thing, again, is when I look at them, they're passionate about their product. They're passionate about what they do. They're thinking steps ahead. It's in them, right? And not ironically, their product and business reflects them.
Yeah.
And those are serial entrepreneurs, those guys.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking, when you say the one thing, I'm thinking of Kathleen Woods. Do you know that name by any chance? She's a restaurant consultant. I'm also thinking of Ed Doherty, who's another restaurant consultant, and they've built their careers. I mean, Ed calls it 1 degree, focusing on 1 degree. That's just how he branded it. Mm-hmm. Kathleen Woods calls it her one thing. She helped Cane's basically scale. That's kind of her claim to fame. It's the focus of just, yes, I agree with you. It's the brothers, I don't think they're brothers, but they're,
some of them
partners, actually, is there? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Jason and his brother. But it's also, choosing to do one thing, hot chicken. Like their menu is hot chicken. Like that is their thing. And then when I hear about like in the restaurant industry, I just can't help but think like you can't be everything to everybody. You have to like, especially as we go into the future, to your point, unit economics, you can have much better performance if you choose to put all of your energy into doing one thing really well. And you can train around doing one thing really well. You can use systems and robotics or like automation to do one thing. When you do one thing, you can streamline like no other person. When you are like, when your competition is a Chinese food restaurant that has like a book for a menu, like you are so dependent on those people back of house to be talented and skilled enough to be able to cook all those things, right? I use a Chinese restaurant because I feel like it's like the most, like when you go to a Chinese restaurant, you think like there's just so many options. It's like the Cheesecake Factory. Right. But unless your one thing is trying to be everything to everybody, like the Cheesecake Factory, somehow they figured it out. But what's going through your mind as I say this?
Yeah, no, you're increasing your likelihood of success, but also when you have that focus on that one thing or however we phrase it, that's where innovation happens. That's where efficiency happens. That's where you could identify signal from noise, identify what works and make things better.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it, right? By us, there was a point in time where, as a franchise law, as a law firm, we also did litigation. And when we made a decision as a team that it's the best interest of our clients not to do that. And that was 50% of our revenue. It gets scary, right? But the innovation, the ability to deliver, it becomes very hard for other businesses to compete with you when you have that focus.
Yeah.
And you see things differently. You start increasing volume. You see more patterns. And you could build around it. Yeah. So I think it's powerful.
Well, like even the marketing, like when you like you can now with SEO and all this stuff, if your one thing is, you can go look at a market and be like, what is nobody doing? Okay, that one thing that there's a hole there. I can create a business to solely fill that one thing. And now if anybody's looking for that one thing and they type in this one thing in this market on Google, you're going to be number one. Like you're going to like, from literal like unit operations to, or unit economics to marketing, like having that one thing mentality, like putting all of your eggs into one basket and just crushing it. Right. It's interesting.
It becomes look, I look at because we're a service organization, right? So if a system fails or a client experience doesn't hit the mark, I do think of it in terms of a restaurant, right? What is that one poor experience like for that customer, and what's the impact on that business? And I'll be driving home at night and I'll see one restaurant busy and one empty, and I'm thinking that owner is missing the mark, but they don't realize it. And I'm always thinking, what's the reason they think they're not succeeding? And then reflecting on myself, I'm like, what are we missing as an organization at that level also?
Yeah. So how long has, when did law start for you? Like when did you get into law?
Way too long ago, over 25 years ago. Yeah.
When did the Internicola Law Firm get born?
20 years ago.
20 years ago. When you were formed, were you a franchise law firm? Was that
so? We were a business law firm, right?
Okay.
All business, commercial law. So it fell under that category, but wasn't exclusively franchise.
Yeah. So 20 years ago, when you got started, what was the vision?
It was this, ironically.
You knew you wanted to do franchising.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Why franchising?
Well, because I'm not a fan of the legal industry. I'm not a big fan of it. The lawyer model, the hourly billing, the attitude that lawyers have or don't have, or the adversarial nonsense, although we've litigated significantly and we do our job effectively. I wanted something where we weren't dismantling things, but being a part of building and part of, or at least helping our clients on that journey. And so for me, early on, franchising was very attractive because it was a win-win. We could help businesses win and succeed, right?
I love that. Yeah. I was smiling when you said that because you said you're not a fan of being like, I don't know, you said being a lawyer or like law or something.
Yeah, generally the vast majority of lawyers, they I'm not happy.
I mean, I say the same because like I kind of get grouped into the world of media marketing and influencer, and people say you're a marketer, you're an influencer, and I'm like I want to be the complete opposite of that, and it's just funny how sometimes like, I don't know, like the thing that you hate the most draws you in the most sometimes, or like the world, I don't know, you want to be the antithesis of that world by doing the thing the way it should be done.
Well, I mean, you're right. There's that negative sentiment with marketing, but when it's done right, it transforms businesses, right? Yeah. It's very transformative. There's a pure, but then there's suppliers or marketers out there that miss the mark. And so I think industries get lost, right? I think the marketing world's very difficult. Like you're applying a very organic, genuine approach to what you're doing versus marketing company. We see it with our clients, and their go-to-market strategy when they become a franchise, all these other things. It becomes all packages of nonsense, and people aren't building real stories. And so there's good cause for criticism of marketing companies, and likewise lawyers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So when you started, you were a business lawyer. You wanted to focus on business. You want to focus on helping people build things. When did you really focus on just like franchising? Like how long did it take you to say like, this is exactly what I want to do?
I don't even know the date, but the domain for our website, I must have reserved, which is franchiselawsolutions.com. So the focus was franchise law. So even though we were going to do business, I think that domain I probably registered 20 years ago.
Wow. So right when you were getting started.
Yeah. So that was always in my head.
Why was franchise the path for you? Why do you think in terms of like business, like that is like the way to help people?
So when I started up as a young attorney, I was involved, worked for a commercial firm in Manhattan, litigation, commercial transactions. I had the opportunity to work on a couple of projects involving franchising, and it made sense to me.
Why? What was making sense?
Well, to me, I was looking for a pathway where, as a lawyer, as a service provider, where do I want to build a business and feel good about it and what we're doing and enjoy the relationship with our clients, where it's not like we're billing them for a lawsuit or billing them for, it's something that we could be along the way in the journey as they build a business. That was very appealing to me.
What's the appeal to that?
The entrepreneurship. I mean, if I look at our firm, you could see our branding and everything else going on, but we're entrepreneurs also, right? Yeah. And we have a young team. We have technology solutions, legal solutions. We have our development company. So to me, entrepreneurship has always been there since a child, right? And so it just connected.
Yeah. It's funny. When I first started this podcast, I was kind of against big business, big corporation, franchise, and like my vision for Restaurant Unstoppable was I want to go find all the leaders in every different like market out there, like in like all the different cities, and like to find, using word of mouth, like who are the people doing it right, who are doing honest food, who are like taking care of their communities, being involved with their communities, and the more I started learning and the more I started talking to these restaurateurs who were like the leaders in their community, I started to realize that a lot of them aren't making any money. They're struggling to get by. And I don't think money is the bottom line. Like it's not like the most important thing in life, right? In business though, there is a fiscal responsibility to make, like you need to be fiscally responsible, and not for greed. So you can provide security, so you can provide opportunity, so you can do good. Like you need to be able to like, I think it was Adam Smith that talks about the purpose of a business is to be able to create opportunity for that community. And then later on, it changed a little bit with Milton Friedman. I think he had a different take on business. But my point is, like, I started to open up to the idea of like, what can we learn from these corporations? What can we learn from franchising? Like, how do we find a balance between the two? So as I say that, what's going through your mind? Yeah,
there's definitely a balance. Well, number one, I mean, you can't help yourself unless you can't help others unless you could help yourself first, right? Yourself, your team, your organization. So that financial stability, that profit, that money-making ability, because that's also a signal if you're making money, that means you're delivering value that exceeds what people are paying for it, right? And that's, for our core values, we focus on that, right? So if we're profitable, that means we're delivering a higher value to our clients who feel like they're getting amazing value. And then that profitability helps the team grow, helps our team elevate, right? Yeah, I remember early on, I don't know, it was a marketing conference or whatnot, where people are hesitant or reluctant, which I still am today. We don't solicit anyone, but if I feel like we're the best solution for you, I should be almost forcing you to sign up and work with us, right? And to the point where I want to wake up every day and 100% know when someone asks me, what's the reason why there's an advantage to going with your organization? We know the answer, we know it to be true, and we're 100% committed to it.
What's the answer?
Well, for us, it's our focus on franchising and added value services. So what I explain is, as our clients go through their franchise journey 2, 3, 4 years from now, when they look backwards, some of the stepping stones they're going to look back on and say, that made a difference for me, that's going to be advice and services provided by our firm at an extra value, extra level, in terms of, sure, we protected you legally and we thought ahead for you, but we also gave you insights and strategy that are making a difference, right? And that's something I know to be true. And then that gets to, as a business owner, we follow traction, and so we have our meetings and our...
Wait, did you say you're a traction operation?
Yeah,
EOS?
Yeah.
Oh man,
course,
music to my mind. My listeners they're rolling their eyes.
No,
they know that because I'm about to go on an EOS rampage.
Well, so you think it's maybe not gimmicky, but you think, okay, I'll get to that stage at a certain point in time, or it's great to have core values, but right now I need to focus on business, and it changes everything. Those core values change because culture changes your organization. Number one, you need to know that pathway, right? So I'll give as an example, we have a franchise compliance system. We call it Fran IQ. It's added value for our clients. They get a dashboard. They could track what's going on. They could do a bunch of other things. That came about from a traction meeting, one of our annual meetings. And I just threw it out there. I never thought it would happen, but now all of a sudden the team's implementing it and these things come to reality. So I think it's critical for the goal setting. I also think it's critical to get those core values right, because your culture drives your organization.
Yeah.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master on restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
Yeah, I mean, the way I describe core values and vision, and and when people are like, oh, that's for later, it's for you.
Yeah,
it's for you, and then it's literally your embodiment on paper. Like, what do you have any ounce of integrity? Okay, write it down.
Right.
Put it what's your vision? You want to be where in 5 years, 10 years? Okay. Guess you know why people don't do it? Because it scares the fucking shit out of them. Because when they write it down, they say it out loud, they have to do it, and that's scary.
It's very scary.
Yeah, and it forces you to wake up every day, to look at your vision, to look at your core values, and then going forward, any decision you make in your business, put it through that filter. Is it taking you to where you want to be? Exactly. Is it aligned with your core values? Is it? Can you put it through that filter, and does it make it out the other end? No, then don't do it. It keeps you going in one direction.
Yeah, and look, we have our weekly level 10 meetings, right? Sometimes you love sitting there and things are great, and sometimes you get early signals something's off. And EOS is such a big factor, and ironically, again, with why we do what we do here and why we love franchising, I never knew, years ago, speaking with a client and she's talking about her rocks. I'm like, what do you mean rocks, right? And then that leads to the whole other
it's the power of 3. So what EOS is, we talk about it a lot on the show, but if you haven't listened, or if you haven't heard of EOS, it's the entrepreneurial operating system. It was introduced in the book Traction, and it's really there's no new advice. It's nothing that you've never heard before. But what Gino Wickman did really well is he packaged it in a way that makes sense. So like we hear all this advice, but he put it into a package that made it like, oh, in this order is how I apply all these big lessons that we learn. So the rocks, that's just the power of 3. You've heard that. Like you can only focus at 3 things at a time. But to your point, I think what they do really well is a system for communicating and setting goals.
Yep.
And that's the power. It's strategy, goal setting, and then ways to be disciplined and to get into routine and habit to meet those goals. That's would you call it anything else? Is that what it is?
No, it's the framework, right, to engage in planning, right? And it's powerful, right? Yeah. And even if you're just one person, right, at the beginning, it's powerful to go through that process. And my business partner here, he's a part of different coaching programs with Gino Wickman, and that.
Yeah, I've had Gino on the show. He's phenomenal. He's great. He's really smart. He's doing like the 10 disciplines now, or the 10 rules, or he's evolved away. If he sold EOS.
Yeah, they're actually a franchise.
Are they? Yeah, that's right.
They're a franchise.
Yeah. So earlier, thanks for bringing it back to franchising. Earlier, you said when I asked you why franchising, and you said you want to be able to grow with the organizations, the entrepreneurial spirit of franchising. But why is franchising like why is that the vehicle that you encourage people to use to scale?
So if you look at the franchise industry itself, the one negative you'll see is there's too many franchise consultants, franchise advisors out there trying to sell restaurant owners on the concept of franchising their business. The reality is that many of these new franchisors, these small business owners that franchise their business, are probably not ready yet. Right. And I'll get calls all the time. Hey, I franchised 2 years ago. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, one call was very sad. It was an organic food restaurant, very sweet person, took out an SBA loan to pay this franchise development company to franchise her business. And my advice to her was, you're just not ready for franchising. The numbers aren't there yet.
Okay. Keep going, but we're coming back to that. For sure.
Yeah, but the attractive part about franchising is when it's done right, it transforms lives, right? Franchisees, franchisors. We were talking about earlier, I think you're going to have on your podcast Lane's Chicken.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, if you look at those guys, right, they're very thoughtful. They're focused on operations. They're focused on their franchisees, and they're focused on creating value for customers, franchisees. And in many ways, that's a wealth building opportunity that does well. So what I like about franchising is when it's done right, you're taking those operational efficiencies that are so important to restaurants, that so many independent restaurants get wrong, and you're creating opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, you said something that like I have to go deeper into. You said, they weren't ready. Right. And I've seen this too, and I'll keep names out of it, but somebody I spoke with, they're killing it with one location, had them on the show. They told me that they are opening their second location and it's a franchise. And I said, where are you opening it? Like the next town over? They were in the South.
Right.
The next location was in Seattle, Washington. And I just had to bite my tongue because I really try not to it's not my place to go tell people they're making mistakes or whatever. I'm here to learn and listen to perspective. But I really wanted to be slow down, bro. So let me ask you this, when is an organization ready? Typically, what does that picture look like?
So it depends, right? If we're speaking about restaurants, usually I'm focused on unit economics, industry, founder mindset, and founder goals, right? Founder mindset and goals are the most important. And for me, that is, Charles, I understand this is a 5-year vision. I understand that I may become a franchise in 90 to 120 days issuing their FDD, but I also agree that the next 24 months is building a foundation, learning franchising some more, maybe only selectively awarding a franchise to one or two candidates, franchisees that I'm confident in and know our brand, to build our support around them. And 3 years from now, or whatever number it is, have validation, good unit economics for them. So that's the type of mindset I look for. On the unit economics, well, I want them to be a standout in terms of their category, in terms of gross sales, and everyone in the restaurant industry knows, more importantly, food costs, labor costs, gross profit, right? When I say industry, well, we're in the restaurant industry, but there's different segments, right? So if it's a segment where there's a ton of white space, there may be a need to go to market quickly.
What do you mean by white space?
So
meaning it's not a flooded market yet?
Yeah. So example would be, say, acai bowls 10 years ago,
right,
or 8 years ago. There's a ton of white space, people enter, but there's going to be 3 or 4 winners, or 3 winners in that. That to me shows opportunity. Then the other, when I'm looking at industry, is the business complex with a complex menu? Or do we have a streamlined menu that can be replicated? Right, exactly.
Yeah. I like the analogy of like blue waters. Like when sometimes you start, you launch your boat and there's no other boats in the water and like the fishing's good. This is awesome. Then other people go, wait a second. If I go create a boat and I get out into that water, there's opportunity out there. And then all of a sudden people make these boats and now the water is full and then, there's blood and now the sharks come and, they bloody the waters. Right. So blue waters versus bloody waters. And like those are the sharks that come and they see there's opportunity. So they're on your heels. Right. And then you mentioned mindset. I want to go a little bit deeper into that. So the mindset was, you said, it's about, it's going to take 3 months to actually launch.
3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months to actually launch the franchise, meaning the paperwork's done.
Right.
But then it's really going to be 24 to, maybe 36 months. But like, what do you mean by, go deeper into mindset?
Yeah. So
like owner mindset.
When you're dealing with a restaurant, you're dealing with a brick and mortar location that has a higher estimated initial investment. People are signing leases, guaranteeing leases, building out locations, hoods, vents, everything, compared to, say, a home service-based business that I could start out of my house, I buy a van, I go service, right? So you're dealing with franchise buyers that are making a significant commitment. You're also dealing with a business that has sophistication in terms of supply chain replication of products. Now, when restaurants do well in franchising, they do exceptional, right? For the new franchisors, the noise they have to be careful of. I mean, I had it was a restaurant franchise contacted us. I shouldn't say franchise, new to franchising, franchise 2 years earlier, said, Charles, it's not working out. Well, you look at the website, there's nothing unique there. Their franchise sales webpage, they're talking about how great their pizza is, which that doesn't really matter to me, right? I want to know about the business opportunity. And their numbers weren't ready yet. So when I'm talking about long-term, sure, you become a franchise. We'll launch 90 to 120 days. FDD is developed. We have a lot of education in terms of their brand positioning and their go-to-market strategy. But you need to season your franchise offering, right? And to me, seasoning it means take the next 24 months. Like we host a number of conferences for our clients. Restaurant brands are there. We're sharing best practices. They're learning from one another. So you enter the franchise world, let me know what I don't understand. But then also, as you're onboarding those first couple of franchisees, that's critical. Your first 3 or 4 franchisees will determine the trajectory of your franchise system. So if at a certain point of time, say it's 24 months from now, 36, whatever it is, I don't really care. I need to know that your first 3, 4, 5 pioneering franchisees validate, have good unit economics, and say they would do this 1,000 times over. And along the way, there's going to be bumps. So you keep adapting, building better support systems, whether it's on-site inspections, pre-opening support, operations support. You keep making things better, that continuous improvement.
Yes.
If that's your mindset and you're fixated on making those pioneering franchisees successful, Well, then whatever time period is, we could have a conversation about scaling further. But that's the critical part, I think, to succeeding as a restaurant franchise.
Yeah, and I think you look at scaling a franchise like you look at like scaling any organization. It's not how, it's who. Number one, like, who are the people I'm surrounding myself with? Oh, do they have enough money? Good enough. Right? And I think that's where people because how do you make money with a franchise? It's from actually selling the franchise to franchisees, right? And then there's actually like the royalties that come in, and then there's, I think you mentioned this in your video, which I wasn't aware of, almost like affiliate marketing, where you can earn a commission on selling. Like if you're scaling, like if you need to like buy hoods and like outfitting, and like you can earn a commission on the basically the things you're putting into that.
I mean, supply. Yeah. So for you franchise your business, you have initial franchise fees when they sign a contract, ongoing royalties, and supply chain, right? Rebates. But as a franchisor, you should focus on one thing.
What's that?
Royalties.
Okay.
And you should focus on, to win at franchising, number one is understand that initial franchise fee is not a profit center. It's going to cover costs with training, franchise sales. Supply chain rebates, you want to balance that out because you want your franchisees to have an advantage, not be at a disadvantage in higher prices. Royalties is going to be the lifeblood of your business. If you sit with private equity,
it's continuity, it's recurring revenue.
Yeah, and that's going to measure the health of your franchise. And what would show even stronger health is having multi-unit franchise owners. People that own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Because they found a winning combination.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's out there. I mean, what's amazing is I've seen local or not so local restaurants and owners that never thought about franchising, or
they probably thought like I'd thought, where it's like, I don't want to be the evil corporation. I don't want, it's like, it's not all about the money for me. It's about the passion. It's about the art,
then they understand. I've seen them go from knowing nothing about franchising to be seasoned and sophisticated franchisors. And then I've seen private equity groups come in, add capital, scale up the systems even more to a point where I didn't think it was possible, and they do. And very large exits. And what's great about the one I'm thinking in my head, which can't go into the name, but when I think about that company, the exit they achieved, I also think about how many franchisees they have that own multiple locations and the wealth that's created for them. So there's definitely wins there.
So when you sell a franchise, do you, as a franchisee, are you being forced out of the organization at that point? Do you you cash out?
When you're selling your company? Yeah. So if I have a restaurant, I franchise it. Number one, I'm going to be signing a franchise agreement. I'll have a franchisee that opens up a location. As I scale and grow my organization, a lot of times private equity will make a partial investment to help you scale more. And usually that investment goes into franchisee support, operations, and a bunch of things that are going to improve.
C-suite.
Well, yeah. No, but yeah, right, support team members, but hopefully improve unit economics for franchisees' profitability. At an ultimate exit, the company's sold. And a lot of times founders they leave the company. Yeah.
So when I hear about mindset, it's really, you mentioned like, what are the founder goals? So did you list what those goals are? Like, what are like the goals you're looking for if somebody like approaches you and they say,
well, first, I mean, to get in the game, we need the good unit economics. We need differentiators in terms of the brand, the product. We need to see a pathway on supply chain for production, right, for the food. On the founder level, I'm looking for long-term focus. I'm looking for someone that says, Charles, this aligns. And I understand in addition to the capital investment that we're going to make, it's also my time commitment. And I'm willing to devote that to starting this new business, which will be the franchise model, grow the team around it. I understand it's a long-term game. And the first 2 to 3 years, I want to build an amazing base. That's what I look for.
What does an amazing base look like? What is achievable in 3 years?
Well, the good thing about franchise success is it's scalable, right? So for one client, success in 3 years may be to successfully have 20 franchises sold. And for another client, success may be 3 locations. And I've seen it on both ends of the spectrum. Now, the delta, the variable there becomes capital infusion, time, team members. So as long as the vision aligns and the goals are realistic, that's really what we're looking for in the founder. So now over those first couple of years, if my goal over the first 2 years is to onboard 3 franchisees, and Charles, I don't want to waste money on paid advertising and portal leads and all this other stuff, which I agree. I'm going to focus on
portal leads.
So the franchise world, when you think about franchise sales, I would look at it as organic franchise sales from customers and people that know you and know your brand, customers, friends, family. Next would be digital. Well, and in the organic, I would include organic social media, people that interact with your brand. Then you have paid marketing, which gets to Google AdWords and social media paid marketing. And then you'll have in the franchise world, you'll have paid marketing in the form of portal sites, which basically look to talk about
marketplaces.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'd avoid those. And then the other form of marketing are franchise brokers, who themselves are entrepreneurs that are out there. They're trying to qualify individuals looking for a business, connect them. In the restaurant space, that brokers, until you're established, aren't a good source, in my opinion. Portals, I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of spending on paid marketing out of the gate. To me, a key driver is really honing in on brand story, founder story.
Does he a book over there?
Yeah. Donald Miller. Yeah. I love that.
It's a good one. Yeah. It's a good
I
one.
love that. Yeah. Building story brand, Donald Miller.
Hit me from the top of that list because I don't want to make sure I interrupted you. So
you
focus on what brand story?
I mean, it's stream of consciousness. If I don't remember what I said, but yeah, no. So for those founders, I'm like, let's leverage your story. Right?
So what you said before is that, you're not focusing on like marketing. You're more focused on brand story. Pick up that stream again.
Yeah. So where we focus on with our clients, in fact, as we go through the franchise development process, we have a course, a masterclass we put together for them. It's very much the principles of Donald Miller and that brand story. And what are we doing there? We're trying to educate our clients of, hey, let's not overlook what got us into the game or got us to franchising, which is what are the 3 uniques of this restaurant concept? How are we going to transform franchisee lives? And what's our story? Because what sells franchises are unit economics and franchisee validation. We're new to franchising. We don't have franchisees to validate, but we have the founders.
When you say franchisees validation, is that where they prove the system, like you create the franchise system and like the operations manual, and they basically go and execute and have success? Is that what you mean?
So if I'm buying a franchise and there's 10 other franchisees up and running, before I sign that agreement, I could call them and ask them, would you make this decision again? Are you glad you invested in this franchise? What's your experience like? If they validate and say, this is great, I do it all day.
Proof of concept.
Yeah. And now, so as a new franchisor, you don't have that. And our clients are different in the sense that I look at it as guerrilla warfare, right? You have these talking about big companies or big franchise systems. I truly believe the startups, our clients, are at an advantage because they're following dated and tired marketing strategies many times. And as a new franchisor, as you enter the space, or as what we call an emerging franchisor, that you're on that journey, leverage your assets, leverage that story, leverage the founders. And I think you could create a good pathway. So for me, that initial part of becoming a franchise means you as a founder, you're ready to roll up your sleeves and engage in this. And, and let's, our first couple of franchisees, make sure they succeed, understand continuous improvement. Our operations manual and systems to support them keeps evolving. And then that becomes, you get that flywheel spinning and special things happen.
Yeah. One of these universal truths I've learned and what I call is like putting your energy in, not out. So don't put your energy out into the world.
Yeah.
Put your energy into what you're already doing better. And so it's like this, it's Kaizen, continuous improvement is what I think the words you use. It's never, so I think we think that and there is some truth to marketing. I think that, what kind of, why I hate being identified as a marketer is because I hate that sometimes when people say like, oh, you need to be on, Instagram and TikTok and Google and all this. Like you need to do all these things to be successful today, or just own your business on Google at the very least, or have an optimized SEO and website and all these things. And I think that is all marketing, packaging, promotion, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't know why I'm going down this rabbit hole right now, but it's like, that's putting your energy out into the world. So, okay, now you're driving business to your restaurant, but does your restaurant suck? Because if it sucks, it doesn't matter how much money you spend on marketing, because nobody's ever going to come back. And eventually you're going to run out of people to fool in your market, right?
Which I love the way you're phrasing it. If you're focused within, right, and you're focused on your product and your service, turns out that becomes the best media and conversation if you are going to engage in that outbound marketing, right? So many marketing messages are just vague in general because no one's focused internally, right? And that's where that passion is and that focus. So I think that becomes the opportunity for any business.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, just putting the energy into doing things better. You keep on mentioning unit economics, and you kind of ran through a list of what the unit economics are. Is it scalable? Are you like the prime cost? Do you have good gross margins and all these variables? Can you just hit me with the unit economics? Like in terms of, we're still on the question is like what, when is an organization ready? So I kind of want to break down unit economics, like specifics. So, that stream of consciousness,
right.
Human tapping into, what are the
now
the bullets?
Keep in mind, so when we're talking about unit economics, right, we also mentioned, I said white space in terms of opportunity. So that to me is, so at the most objective level, it's gross sales, right? Average unit volume, but also the pattern of growth in that average unit volume. Are we seeing uptrends? Or is there a downtrend?
So white space, gross sales, pattern of growth.
Right. Then we would focus in on food cost, labor cost. So we're looking at what's the gross profit of the business. Ultimately, at least when we're assessing with our clients, we're going to dive down into look at what's the cash flow, right? So what is that EBITDA? What's the cash flow the business is generating? And then I think, a critical factor to evaluate is what's the ROI potential on the estimated initial investment? If it costs me $600,000 to open up a location, how many years does it take me to recoup that investment?
Okay. So now that we got this list, what is a good target unit ROI?
Well, it's a tough one. Depends on the industries, what's involved. Labor costs 3 to 4 years to recoup investment, I would say.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So in terms of, I think we talk about this a lot, when I think unit economics, I'm thinking like how are you making money with that one unit, right? So you're looking, like you said, prime cost, gross margin. Are you looking for 60% or less, or do you want to see more like 55% or less prime costs?
It gets so tough recently with food costs really scaling up. 60% would be great. Yeah. Right. But a lot of times it may not be achievable depending on the industry.
I think going back to one thing, right? So, what is that one? I think this is why you see so many fried chicken concepts.
Yes. Oh, exactly. Yeah.
It's unit economics. Yeah. It's really hard to beat. Or pizza.
Yeah. No.
Flour and water all day. Tacos. Sign me up.
Right. And that labor, streamlined labor, great product, great service. No question about it.
Right. So white space, we kind of unpackaged that. It's just, there's room there, like you're first to market essentially. You have a unique idea that's scalable.
Yeah, and also keep in mind different goals for different franchisors. We have a client who's now a good friend. He scaled his business and decided he only wanted to stay local and only wanted to sell a certain number of franchise locations, and worried about quality controls, operating a commissary to supply a good amount of the product in this local market, and he's happy with it. Doesn't want to sell. We have other clients that they franchise to accommodate certain investors, but the concept's doing so well, they've just went on to open 30 corporate locations.
Yeah.
So it really is scalable if it's done for the right purposes. You could really scale up or stay at a consistent size.
So pattern for growth is the scalability. And you're looking for it. Does like this is where somebody says, does it have legs? That is that pattern of growth? Or
yeah, look. too many, we'll see a restaurant, I'll see a pizza concept. And again, I'll use the example of again, not our client, but started with a development company. And I go to their website and it's like, franchise with us. Okay, why? They're not answering it. They're talking about how great their pizza is. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll buy your pizza. And then they talk about $1 billion industry or whatever industry. Okay, great. But how much do you make? And how am I going to do that? And how do you help me do it? And if you can answer all these questions, there's a pathway. And we've seen complex restaurants also, not full, complex in terms of a ton of dishes but you have to have the supply chain.
Yeah. So you said something that I want to unpackage, and it's one thing I really wanted to touch on today in today's conversation is this idea of, what is the end goal, right? And I think a lot of people, when they think franchise, every franchisor wants to become a 1,000-unit operator. They want to be the next Subway, right? Or whatever. I think Subway is over 100,000 locations, 200,000. I don't even know.
I don't even know.
It's crazy. But to your point, there is no right. And I think this is another one of the biggest lessons I learned. Like when I started 10 years ago, I was trying to figure out what is the secret, what is the path? There is no path.
Right.
It's like 1,000,001 different ways to get from Boston to San Diego, choose the path that makes sense for you. So in that point is the destination with franchising. Is there where does it make sense? Is there a sweet spot where it's is it worth franchising if you only want 10 locations?
It could be, yeah.
So
right. And we've seen clients where maybe that was their only goal and have gone on to sell, a very substantial company with hundreds of locations. I could have a network of 20 franchisees and be very happy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hesitant to say this out loud because I don't want the gig to be up, but my goal with this podcast is to take what we've learned from these giant corporations and to make to democratize that knowledge and to basically decentralize this wisdom and to if it's known, I feel like it should be universally available. If we, as a human race, if we know how to do something, we should all have access to that information and how to do it, right? And to take that information and to make it available so we can balance out the world a little bit. So the smaller operations know how these giant companies got there and have a little competition. So we see more 100 unit and below operations and fewer, 1,000 unit operations. Let's spread out the wealth a little bit. Or even more 20 unit operators.
I think that's a valid goal. And that gets to the heart of entrepreneurship, right? Anything can be disrupted. And I'll agree, right? So when you're younger, whenever you're what is the answer, right? And the answer is there is no one answer, right? It's
relativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's never that one thing or one answer in terms of what you need to be doing. It's sort of an all of the above in a very thoughtful way with the right focus. In terms of democratizing success, I happen to think when you get to certain levels with gigantic C-suites and everything else, they're not as smart as you think, and when I'm looking at pure entrepreneurs, whether our clients are one location or 100, we can out hustle them. We could out innovate them. But I do think there's data and sort of business intelligence that should be brought into the small business front. When we work with restaurant consultants all the time, and when we actually recommend or send them into one of our client brands, 3 weeks later, they already reduced food costs by making some phone calls.
Yeah. It's amazing how you can shave 6%, 10% off the food. We host this bi-weekly profit power hour. I'm partnering with Fred Langley from Restaurant Systems Pro, a 7-figure restaurant consultant. And we basically just invite people to come sit with us, bring your P&L, share the screen. Let's just start looking for the holes. where are the holes? And he had somebody look at their descending product report, which is basically you get it from your vendor, where do we spend the most money in descending order? French fries. So this was a burger concept. Number one purchase, French fries. Second purchase, burger patties. And you just go down and you start looking at your actual versus theoretical costs. And you say, okay, we're off. You know, like, where's the money going? So you start, the first thing you do is like, well, okay, well, if we have 5 ounces of French fries with every order, let's start measuring those. Okay, oh shit, I was giving 9 ounces of French fries with every order. No wonder why my costs are off, you know, like, and that's your highest selling item right there. Almost doubling a portion on your like the thing that you sell the most of. Like, you don't think that's going to affect your theoretical costs, like in your actual costs? So like in that one thing, I think we help this person shave like almost 4% off their food costs.
Right. And also the mindset that they're going to apply in other areas.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And then you take that knowledge and it just helps you like see your business different. Like it's a game of business, right? Now it's a game against yourself. And the P&L is a scorecard.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's fun. Where was I going? I had a path I was going to take us on. Okay. So, what I would like to get into now is, benefit. So I asked you, we're talking about, you know, what makes sense. Like when, you know, do you need to have a goal of getting to 100 locations, or should you franchise if you want to get to 20 locations, right? Like, and you said it all depends. So like why I'm interested in franchising is I think that it could be a great tool if more people understood it and were familiar with it and weren't so like anti it, you know, like how can we use franchising to meet my mission of spreading out the wealth and like creating like, you know, regional franchises. Like I think of P. Terry's, you know, P. Terry's?
No.
They're a burger joint out of Austin. I actually think they're a corporation. I don't think they're franchised, but they scaled to, I think, 16 units in and around Austin, Texas before they went to San Antonio.
Smart.
Yeah. So I want to see more of that in the world.
Why?
And they're basically in and out. Same idea. Like it's what you would expect from an In-N-Out burger, but hyper local, hyper.
I think there's so many advantages to be hyper local. Look, the advantage is why someone, when we have conversations, what are some of the signals where I'm like, this makes sense? Charles, we have XYZ restaurant. We're doing very well. Opened up X number of locations, which we've seen many successful clients with just one. So I'm not saying it has to be multiple, but we have X number of locations. Our food costs, labor costs, all in line. Our numbers are escalating and scaling in a positive way. And it's now time to devote capital to, you know, we don't want to keep investing all this capital in this, or we're starting to see we're running into issues in terms of managers and labor. And there's so much pathway for our brand. We think franchising may be the best step. So franchising means advantages. You're infusing capital into your growth, right? Your franchise partners, your future franchisees are investing capital, open up.
Skin in the game.
Yeah, totally. If you get it right, you're dealing with management and labor. Now you're onboarding franchisees. Hopefully they're like-minded, culture fit. They own their franchise location. They're going to be managing it. So now you're dealing with labor issues. And then you're focused on creating economies of scale as you expand brand reach, locations, customer recognition, supply chain purchasing. So those are real advantages.
Yeah. You're hitting us with so much. Unless I write these things down, like I'm trying to listen, the question I have is so fleeting. So there's so many different directions we could go right now, Charles. I mean, so back to this idea of like where it makes sense. You're talking about the benefits. I'm tempted to go down this road of talking about the people that you're recruiting. You keep on talking about if you're doing it right, you're like the first 3 people you hire, right? I feel like people when franchises go wrong, it's like maybe it's because there's a lot of white space and they're thinking to themselves like if we don't move fast, somebody else is going to, and it's like, okay, yeah, like first to market, there's opportunity, you have to move fast, but at what cost? You know, like who are you bringing on that doesn't align with your core values and your vision and your goals and all these things? So, I mean, should we go deeper into like what is the avatar of the kind of person, like who makes a good franchisee?
Well, so, and just backing up 1 second, right? If there is white space or you enter the market, doesn't mean you will or should sell 10 franchises that year. You're not going to, or you probably shouldn't, or if you do, there's a specific reason. So now if we're focused on 2 to 3 validating franchisees, whenever that happens over the next 12, 24 months, you should be rejecting a lot more than you're accepting, right?
Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah. I mean, there's some restaurant brands that I'd like to own one of them, right? And they won't accept me because they want someone with restaurant experience. I'm not saying it needs to be that scrutinized. As a franchisor, probably going to get it wrong a couple of times. But if you're not in it for just signing someone up and you're really going to scrutinize their values, their capital, their reserve capital, you don't want them too wealthy where this is a hobby, but you don't want them just buying a franchise and being over leveraged, right? You're focused on their financial capability, their reasons why they're buying. And usually if someone's buying a restaurant, they want income replacement with the ability to potentially create legacy, right? Whether it's multiple locations or a generational business. So you're really balancing mindset. It's not easy to run a restaurant, right? People think I made a ton of money on Wall Street. Well, different world. You're not just getting handed out bonus checks for nothing. You're going to be working really hard at a restaurant. So you go through that. There's a process. I mean, for our clients, you know, the good thing is we have advisors and team members that have been with restaurant concepts that on day one was local and it's grown over time. So you know, there's a process for qualifying franchise buyers, and you know, there's a good process in place.
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's be profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
Is there a point where it doesn't make sense to franchise? I'm curious, like at what point does it like make sense in terms of like payoff?
That's a great question. Let's think about that for a second. So just a little deeper on your question here. You're saying from the perspective of a restaurant owner.
Right. So my dream, right? So to decentralize and democratize knowledge and wisdom, to make more small regional restaurant groups than national global chains, right? So is there a point like 20 units, 30 units where like if you're really going to be like a 10 unit operator, does it really make sense to franchise? Like, is there a point that you know, a minimum bar you want to get over to like where it makes sense?
So where it makes sense to franchise?
Yeah.
I wouldn't. We've had very successful clients with one unit.
So what's the point of franchising if you don't want to scale?
Well, they had one unit corporate and then they franchised.
Got it.
Right? So I think the point of franchising, usually you want to be about 20 units to have good economies of scale, where I think even a franchise system of 20 units is a home run. That's a very sellable asset where your multiple is more than, you know, the sum of the parts. But to me, if you're deciding to franchise, you should feel like, hey, Charles, this is great business and we could scale and replicate and teach others to do it, and they're going to do well. And I'm confident in that. That's where you need to feel. And Charles, I want to do it too, because it's only so much capital I could keep putting into new locations and only so many new managers I could be overseeing. I can help people scale with this.
Yeah. You know, I do think that I'm not against corporation or franchise as I've grown and evolved and gotten the perspective, but I do think that there is, you know, such a thing as getting too big. I think that there's certain things that we lose in humanity and society when there's too many of us in an organization, or if a company gets too big. A lot of the human elements, the things we need to be happy, like being seen and valued for our contribution to our organization. When there's just too many people, it gets harder and harder to see. I think, are you familiar with Dunbar's number?
No.
It's this idea that we can only handle about 150 relationships. Each person, and the way that they found that number is, I think this guy, he was like studying primates, Dunbar, ironically. He was studying primates, and he found that chimpanzees can handle 50 relationships. Beyond 50 relationships, they don't know who the leader is anymore, and things start to fragment. And it's just like a social anarchy beyond 50 chimpanzees. That's just too much. And then you see sex, they split up and they go their own way. And they study other primates, and there's a ratio between the size of the surface area of the skull and the frontal lobe, and they can look at that ratio, and it's it almost always works out when they study these primates in nature. And for human beings, that ratio is about 150. And if you look at history, these sweet spots of when humans are at peak optimal performance in groups, it's always 150 people are in that group. And it's because beyond 150, social order starts to dematerialize. We don't know who the leader is anymore, and it's too much for us to manage emotionally. So my question is, how do we use things like that as governors in business to intentionally keep certain, maybe it's branches of the business below 150 so that people are happy. So maybe you keep your direct reports below 150. Maybe it's not necessarily 150 because there's other people in your life too, but you know where I'm going with this. Are there governors that can help us figure out where's the sweet spot in scale and relationships, so we know don't go beyond this number, because we're going to start diluting culture.
Yeah. I'm preset toward small business and entrepreneurs. A David and Goliath fight, that's what I enjoy engaging in. Let's take down the Goliath.
Yeah.
But I will say, right, and then you look at companies that have gotten stagnant and tired, and look at Apple Computer, right? There hasn't been innovation in God knows how long there. But what I have learned as our clients have grown, right, and taken on private equity, I've seen, at 100 units, private equity come in and things improve even more.
Yeah.
And I've seen it beyond that. So over time, even though I'm very blue collar the way I grew up, and so I'm ready for that battle, I do think there's tremendous efficiencies that could be created. Look, at the end, the way I'm going to measure a franchise system, whether they have 10 franchisees or 500, it's what's the financial performance of the franchisees, and are you changing their lives? And if you have a great model and you're supplying and supporting them, and they have a marketplace advantage, I'm going to give credit to that. Yeah. Whereas, I also don't want to be part of a franchise system as a franchisee that I know everyone, I love everyone, but I'm not feeding my family.
Yeah, well, I feel like owner-operator is to restaurant group as franchisee is to franchise organization.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So in that model, behind every great restaurant is a great person. Usually the founder or leader, right? Or partners, great people, not just one person. And what I found is that as you scale, if you don't scale well, then you start diluting that individual. So people in an organization won't rise above the leadership, right? So you as the leader have to have that level of presence and influence to aspire people to rise. So if you are one person trying to aspire 300, 400, 500 people, you're going to get diluted. Yeah. So you need to, you can only focus on getting maybe 20 people to aspire. And then you lift those people up, the owner operators, right? The partners in your 20 unit restaurant group. And then they turn around and they lift up their general managers.
Right.
And then their general managers turn around and lift up their front. So so I think the point that we're making is that it's really about the who, not the what. And being developers of not restaurants, but people. And I think that can't happen fast. You can't change, you can't transform people overnight. It's a constant, gentle pressure, never ending, Kaizen, better today, EOS, goals, like 5-year plan. And I think where people get in trouble with franchising is they see, like, oh, like how big can we get it? How fast? And like, do you meet the requirement? I.e., here's the franchisee, like initial payment. What's the term for that?
The initial franchise fee.
Yeah, the initial franchise fee.
So. No, and that continuous improvement is, and that's why I talk about seasoning a franchise offering. The good thing about the restaurant industry is what differentiates restaurants is that consistent service, product quality, and as a franchise, those goals align, right? If you get all the supply and the training, right? But as a new franchisor, you have to focus on scaling slowly because it's a new role for you as a business owner.
Yeah. I'm like tempted to like start going deeper into like what are the steps to opening a franchise, but part of me selfishly wants to get you back on the show.
Yeah, I would love to.
I would love to have you host a workshop where we pick a topic and just drill deep into it.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested in just your perspective. You host these summits or the conferences. Mm-hmm. You have direct connect to a lot of leaders in the industry, influencers, like thought leaders, people challenging the status quo. Like, what are you seeing in the world of restaurants right now? Like, what are I hate the word trends, but like, what are the patterns that you're seeing?
So, we've recently had our conference, and it was in Dallas last week. And it wasn't just restaurant, it was emerging franchisors. It's interesting when you sit down with restaurant guys and restaurant franchisors, time and again, they understand that operations and very particular execution on operations is critical. Not making the business overly complex. Again, having that primary focus for your offering, qualifying the right franchisees. So to me, it's not a particular industry or food segment. It's understanding the economics of what you're offering and how your franchisees are going to replicate that, right? And so it never fails. The most technical people, when we're having a drink or dinner in the franchise world, I find the restaurant franchisors to be the most process focused and numbers focused of any group.
Wait, so the franchise, say that again?
Restaurant franchisors versus, say, other industries.
So restaurant franchisors meaning the people developing, I thought you were talking about the franchisees for a
No,
second.
I'm talking about the people that are selling franchises, franchising their business, supporting franchisees.
And they're systems numbers oriented.
They are systems focused. They're focused on training. They're focused on numbers, focused on supply chain. They're worried about, is egg costs going up or whatever else?
Yeah.
And they're honed in on that.
Yeah, I'm doing a 4-part must-have profit or 4-part must-have profit systems workshop with Fred Langley right now. And you'd think, what's a profit system that you need? You'd think marketing would be one of those 4 things. It's not. It's budgeting, costing, inventory, and budgeting, costing. You think I'd have this memorized if I wanted to talk about budget, costing. I know trainings. What's the third one? We just maybe it's purchasing.
Probably.
I could just look at this is embarrassing.
I mean, but to me, as you look, once you get the service right, I feel like the marketing aligns itself, right? It's that great experience at the restaurant.
Yeah. So it's budgeting, cost of goods, labor, and training. That's what it was.
Okay.
So I mean, that's right there. Cost of goods and labor, those are your prime costs, right? Budgeting is just cash flow management. Like, where's the money going? And then training, and I think that training, when I think training, I think 4 walls marketing. Training is getting your people to, whether it's front of house or back of house, right? It's the product, getting the product out consistently and having the systems around purchasing, cost of goods, and like all these systems like managing those prime costs. But beyond that, it's also product knowledge and experience and upselling and like the like creating that, like training is creating the experience.
Right.
I kind of lost our train of thought, but I think it's back to that idea of just focusing on those things. You were talking about the franchisors that do the best are detail oriented. They're putting the energy in, not out.
Mm-hmm.
What about franchisees? Like the people who do well with taking someone's franchise and buying multiple units. Like what kind of person, is there an avatar person that does well with that?
I
have an idea, but I want to.
Well, you're dealing with culture, fit, personality, and also significantly financial capability, right? The ability to invest in a restaurant and capitalize it. As a general statement, generally franchisees aren't really entrepreneurs. They're individuals that are willing to invest, looking for ROI, and are going to follow a system.
Managers?
What's that?
I think managers. When I think franchisees, I think they're
good
at give them a system and they're going to knock it out of the park every time.
That's a great way to equate it.
You think of the E-Myth, right? He talks about entrepreneurs, technicians, and managers. I think managers, like the people who would be a general manager, who like want to be handed a system and they want to execute it.
Yeah.
I'm not that person.
It's funny.
I was thinking maybe I could get some franchises someday. I was like, I don't think I would ever.
Well, if it were a restaurant, I think I'd be that person because I'd be like, let me follow whatever these guys say.
Yeah.
And, when you sit with the right, and I guess I could be biased, right, toward clients, but for franchise buyers, they have to be careful. The quality difference between franchisor A and B could be dramatic, and the businesses could look identical. And again, reflect on a recent meeting. In speaking, and no one was trying to sell me a franchise. In fact, they wouldn't if I wanted to. Just hearing them talk about the business, what they're focused on, made me want to buy one, right? So there's quality out there. There's really good people, very thoughtful, took their lumps in the restaurant industry, franchise industry, and are getting it right and will create generational wealth. And there's people that won't. And so we focus for our clients. We want to get them on this side and, and do it the right way.
What about in terms of unit economics? Are there changes you're seeing your community making in terms of like, are they leaning more on automation and technology and AI to offset cost of goods and labor? I
haven't seen that happen yet, although I'm sure it will. Or when I go to a restaurant, I always have to question at a drive-through, am I talking to AI or a person?
Yeah.
Right. But what we do see is specialization. Certain categories in the restaurant space are accelerating because they have a concept that could be replicated. So we're seeing a focus on simplicity, replication, unit economics.
If we're going to be leaning on automation, you look at say like Flippy or Chippy, right? This robot arm that does like.
We have a client. They're a robot arm.
Is it chicken wings?
It's Chicken 101. I could connect you.
Have you heard of Bueno Papa?
No.
I think it's Bueno Papa. It's good French fry. What's Spanish for French fry? I don't know. I think I had them on the show. And they have a French fry concept that they're in the process of franchising. But you think in terms of like, is our French fries easy to scale? I mean, some people would say French fries are an art, but in terms of like implementing automation for like, you could automate the process of cutting the French fries. You could automate the process of cooking the French fries. I mean, you would need to like make sure that the pH and all that stuff is like, there's like things that people do to get the perfect French fry, but it's really just French fries with like different toppings.
Right.
It's like such a scalable concept, things like that. So, I mean, that's what I've learned too. I mean, I've definitely seen that pattern too. In terms of like technology, are people more and more going towards like enterprise solutions? Do you know what I mean by an enterprise solution?
I mean, what we'll see, not real. I mean, we'll just see. The restaurant industry itself is really governed by these point of sale systems and the data and information they provide. But that's the most I would say.
Did you see them like leaning towards like a Restaurant 365 or a Restaurant Systems Pro type of software?
Somewhat. And I'll also see, and I don't recall the names, support in terms of labor, right? And overseeing labor and labor compliance and all automations with that stuff.
Yeah, like a 7 shifts or something.
Yeah,
like
it's so, I mean, it's become so complex, right? All the managing labor throughout the country.
Yeah. I mean, I think that more and more, you're going to see more and more single, double unit operators. If I was opening a restaurant tomorrow, from day one, I would start with an enterprise solution. And people will say, like, that's such an unnecessary cost. It's $500 a month or $300 a month. I'm like, for $500 a month, I can have a system that would take me years to build, and I could build a business around those systems. And then from day one, I can delegate to high school kids because they're more capable than you think. They just need to be shown how. If they have a system and they have a step-by-step process to follow, they will be able to figure it out. Or I could pay somebody $80,000 a year to come in and run my restaurant as a general manager.
Yeah, I think there's tremendous opportunity with that. Even in the franchise world, not necessarily restaurant, we'll have clients become new clients, and they're already in the franchise world, and they're not capturing data from their franchisees.
Right. I mean, you could literally just launch with Restaurant Systems Pro tomorrow, and not to say that eliminates all the work you're going to have to do to get your franchise FDD. Is that what it's?
Yeah.
I mean, but it's going to, I mean, that's like the legal side, but then beyond that, there's the franchise, the other part of it, which is the operations agreement, right? So like, but you're literally taking a system that is software as a system that is already built, and you can choose to build from scratch, or you can build a business around these true and trust. Like, that's what I would do. From day one, I would start.
I mean, it's critical to every business.
Yeah. Anything we haven't discussed up to this point that you're hoping to get out?
I'm sure there's a ton of things, but in a positive way. Like, this has been for me, a good conversation.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think for whoever's viewing the podcast, right? I think we covered good fundamentals at least on franchising, and more importantly, the journey, right? And what's going on. Other than that, no, I mean.
Well, we started talking in the mission of Restaurant Unstoppable is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. I think definitely some inspiration in the work you're doing, but I think there was a more empowerment today. This was an empowerment heavy episode.
Yeah,
there was lots of information.
Yeah.
But transforming, in my eyes, the transforming is, thinking bigger picture. Like where is the industry going, and how do we go into the future kind of like consciously, and not just be reactive to survival, but being like, where are we, and where do we want to be, and how do we start like getting on the same page about how we can collectively move in a better direction. So like you mentioned some concerns earlier with like AI.
Well, yeah.
How does that relate to the restaurant industry?
Right. So like back to your mission, right? Number one, I think for those restaurant owners out there that feel like they have something special and meet these numbers and qualifications, whatnot, just know that there is a pathway, and I've seen amazing things happen. But also what concerns me is the same thing concerns me for everything, whether it's a service company like ours or a restaurant, which is, it does concern me when I see things like ghost kitchens, when I see Google and technology interface with the consumers more, or you have third-party delivery services and all these other things.
Why is that concerning?
Because I feel like it's disconnecting the consumer from the brand, and it's taking control over the relationship, right? Or at least extracting the value. I mean, how much longer are people going to pay super premiums to have DoorDash deliver product to their door? And at a certain point, does that hit the bottom line of the restaurant owner? Same thing with our company as a franchise organization, or 1,000 other things. And so for me, it's like, well, we're thinking ahead. What are some of how do you put a garden wall around your community of customers, right? So I think those are things that less, more for service industries, but definitely something that restaurant owners need to grapple with. And for me, it's going to come down to that consistent service, that connection, building brand, and at a collateral way too, in theory, expanding outside of the reach of AI and these technology systems where maybe franchising does help, right? If it's done the right way. To me, I don't know the answer. I'm focused on, even for us as a franchise law firm, franchise development company, in addition to doing great work, which people assume should always happen, we're focused on building community, added value, that experience. And I think that's where restaurants need to stick to as we all navigate this landscape.
I agree. But this actually came up in the conversation just before I was in the camper in your parking lot, and I was hosting a live event, Coffee with Eric. I do it every other week, where it's just I'm just making myself available. It's literally like we're sitting on a computer, like, come hang out. What's your challenge today? Like, we're all going to talk, or maybe we just talk about random things. And then we're talking about marketing. And I like to use this analogy that we're all given 100 units of attention a day. Right. And I think that when I get frustrated with the world of marketing and Google and Facebook and Meta and all these outside variables that pull they own the relationship with our guests. Like you said, you want to create a walled off garden for you to own your relationship with your guests. But sometimes we got to open the door to that garden and go out into the world and pull people into our garden, right? We have to go through the gates and pull them through into our world. But I think it's getting to the point where more the narrative around people who encourage other people to get online and to do more social media, it's almost always coming from marketers who have something to sell, a business, but those people are getting their information from Google, and Google is controlling the agenda and the narrative. And I think it's just all trickling down to the consumer. And show me one person who's not a marketer who would encourage somebody to spend more time on social media. Are we not paying attention to the bigger narrative with what the mental health issues in the world, and the we're just all depressed, and our data is just out there for anybody who wants to use it to not influence but manipulate. When you don't know how you're being influenced and when it's happening, that's a weird place to be, and it's happening, and nobody's talking about that. More people are just saying, go out there, get on social media, spend all of your time promoting yourself. And it's just we only have so many units a day of attention. And do we really want to give it to the internet, or do we want to give it to the people who are in our garden? Well,
for a restaurant, that direct connection is always critical, right? And that's the opportunity in this industry, in that space, which is what I love. You may not need to touch any marketing. That experience, what is the marketing of, driving through a Chick-fil-A drive-through where they say "my pleasure" or "of course" or whatever other polite terms, that kicks off so much. But for those restaurant owners, even if you jump out of that gardens community and start promoting on social media and all this other stuff, paid marketing, my experience and advice is generally the messaging is wrong. The approach is wrong. Why? Because someone's selling you to go advertise or spend money. They're telling you to do X, Y, and Z, and you're approaching it like a formula. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And what's missing, things like brand story and the heart and essence of what you're doing.
Yeah, I've never been good at formulas.
No,
I've never been good in algorithms.
I'm good with social media if you're communicating a great message.
Yeah.
Not about eating at my restaurant, but telling a story of something.
I think that's probably one of the reasons why I struggle with it, because I feel like social media today is becoming so algorithmic. Why can I say that? What am I trying to say?
Algorithmic.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I just never,
I've
never been a good, I'm not a good manager. I'm not a good attention to detail person. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a dreamer. I live in the clouds. I like to go fast and break things. And when I have to slow down to record a video, and not just record the video, but then to hashtag 10 million things, and then to tag certain things and have a strategy behind it. It's just what is this? But I was put in my place a little bit. Rashmi joined us. So she's based out of Texas, and she just joined the live conversation. Very savvy marketing restaurateur, but she was like advocating for it. No, like she was on the other side of the argument. She's like, you don't have to be the person who's doing all the social media. You just need to have a process for it and delegate it to your staff. And I think that is one side of it that I hear too. Like you have a system for marketing and like you give your team the parameters. But then I think about Real Tacos, which is out of Atlanta, and they have like 171,000 followers. And like, if you look at their social media, like it's just their staff. It's their staff doing funny things. And they get influencers too. I know that's a big part of their strategy, but you know, I just think if I ever owned a restaurant, I would need to hire somebody or have a partner who's marketing because I would just be so infuriated.
Well, you shouldn't have the time, right? Like you should be focused on the product.
So I think that there is no one answer, and I recognize that there's two spectrums to the argument, and both are equally right. But
I think the noise is. I think the answer is there's value to it if it's genuine. The frustration and noise comes in because most of the time it's not genuine. It's a formula.
Yeah.
And it's going to fail and you're just going to waste your time.
Yeah.
But that's marketing for anything.
Yeah. Back to AI. I mean, was there any, in terms of AI, like what concerns should we have with AI in the restaurant industry?
Well, I think, look, if you look at the scale of concerns, right, it would be knowledge-based, service-based companies. At the other end, you know, the physical touch point of doctors and electricians, right? That should be the least susceptible. Same thing with restaurants. It's a physical. My concern, and I think with
when AI combines and slingshots off of robotics, look out, doctors.
Well, I agree, but
and machine learning, those three come together.
I mean, but we'll probably be at the end of the world at that.
I think it's going to be like 5 years away.
Yeah. Well, and so what concerns me. Say if we're focused on restaurants, you know, these companies, Google and others, they're becoming very powerful. They have data, they have information, they can influence where people go to restaurants.
That's the thing that scares me.
Well, yeah, and what could be even scarier is when they're profiting more off a restaurant than the restaurant owner.
Yes. And I think, you know, who was it? Chef Eric, I apologize, out of Chicago. His last name, Eric Williams, said something that has never left me. If only his name could stay with me. That, you know, restaurant owners are like notorious for, they're never the beneficiary of their hard work. And the example he was using is like you go into restaurateurs will go into a community. They will put amazing restaurants into a community and they lift that community up. All ships rise to the tide. And the people who benefit from their work are the people who own the buildings that their restaurants are in.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like this never ending, like, and this is one of the things when I say I want to transform the industry, I want to fucking smack people across the face and wake them up and say, listen, this is like, we are at the leading edge of this shit and they need us and we need to reverse the order of who benefits. You know, like we as the people who are at the leading edge who do the work of this industry need to realize when a technology exists to serve us or to control the market. And with our purchase, we live in a democracy, man. Money talks. Where are you putting your money? You know, like what are we doing?
Look, I'm ready for these battles.
Yeah.
It's a battle. Like, make no mistake. They want to turn every one of us into a widget on an app that generates money for them, and they just pay the bare minimum.
And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I took a $1,000 pay cut this year was because, like, I want to be able to talk about this sort of stuff. And I'm not pointing my finger at any one company right now, but, you know, when you start blowing the whistle, sometimes you can blow the whistle on the hand that feeds you, you know?
It's a tough one because there's efficiencies and positives, right? So the problem, I mean,
there is another side of the coin. Yeah.
The real problem, I think, because there's valid reasons for technology or not, the problem becomes one, which it would be boring for this topic, but is at a legal level, the legal system and the politicians, not ironically, have failed. They're too behind on the issue. Intellectual property and knowledge base is basically being stolen, right? If you look at our podcast, our content, all of the things we produced to help educate and inform people who want to franchise their business.
It's a chat GPT search
It's being
away.
stolen,
Yeah.
right? And so, historically, someone will reflect on that 10 years from now, maybe. But, no one's prepared for what's ahead. So I don't know all the challenges. In fact, we're evaluating them internally, right? For, as a service provider, we've always decided never to use outsourced labor, and we don't use AI for our content. We use real writers who are, humans who have. Now the next question becomes: does AI even disrupt our field as lawyers? Which it will.
Yeah.
And then the question is: then do we introduce it? So, reflecting on that for restaurants, just I don't want all the money going to third-party delivery companies, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think what's going to end up happening, I agree with you that AI is kind of democratizing knowledge, right? In a sense, if it's out there, it's
doing it only to enslave us later on.
But my only hope for that, if there is any hope, I think that we're in the experience economy right now. I don't know if you heard, we were in the service economy that evolved into the experience economy.
I like that. That focus.
Joe Pine, the author of the Experience
I like
Economy.
that.
Yeah, it's a really great book. I had him on the show, and he predicts that we're going into the transformation economy, where transformation economy is like you're taking your consumer from point A to point B. So maybe as a restaurant, your consumer, you're going to appeal to their desire to be healthier. So you're going to say, hey, join our restaurant. We're going to put together a meal plan for you, or you can have a subscription model where we ship you this stuff, or you can come in and eat it. You have this budget that you can choose how to, use it however you want. We're going to charge you $500 a month. It doesn't roll over. Come in, get your food, or we can deliver it to you. But we're going to also surround you with a community of other people with similar goals. Right. And we're going to help you get healthy and fit by also having exercise. So it's going to be like this experiences. So it's like food and experiences over time to create a transformation.
That makes sense.
So that gets me excited because it forces us back to relationships.
Well,
and AI can't do that. So the information's out there, but now it's a matter of how are you utilizing the information to serve and transform your guests. I think that's the future.
I gave you one of our T-shirts, right? I was in Dallas last week.
Yeah, thank you for that, by the way.
But the point, it's called Frank Camp, which is our conferences. That was created for our community, right? And helping our clients get from point A to that transformative point.
So,
right.
Yeah, and that's the goal of Restaurant Unstoppable Network is to help create community and help.
I would have never applied it to a restaurant, but that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I actually have an email from Joe Pine waiting for a response.
I'm gonna definitely.
He's like, "What's the restaurant industry have to do with the transformation economy?"
I love that connection.
For like 2 months, it's been sitting in my inbox. So I want to write him an essay. Maybe I'll get featured in the book.
I'm gonna download that book after we're done.
This has been a lot of fun, Charles. We should think about wrapping up. I do want to wrap up with you are a law firm. You have these conferences. You also have a community, and you're also teaching these master classes. So
yes,
list off the elements.
So Internicola Law Firm is our franchise law firm. We help businesses franchise and existing franchisors. We represent restaurant franchise companies throughout the country. Our development company is called Good Spark, and that is that helps business owners not only franchise their business, but navigate the franchise world through coaching, mastermind groups, community, and services, franchise sales, franchise development. So it's an end-to-end solution from point A to becoming a franchisor, selling franchises, and growing, right? And we're on different boards of franchise companies. So that's what we do here. And then we have our Win Big at Franchising podcast, which if you go to our YouTube channel, it's Internicola Law Firm, or it's at Entrepreneurs Kick Ass, right? So that's where all of our stuff lives.
And you have your podcast.
Yeah.
Win Big at Franchising. Did you already say that? I think you did.
Yeah. I mean, that's really, it's our podcast YouTube channel for the Internicola Law Firm. Yep.
Yeah. And there's some great resources there. I mean, I was just sitting in the parking lot, going through, kind of trying to familiarize myself a little bit more with you. And there's a lot of information.
It's the best part of my day, right? I never thought we'd do that stuff, but I leave every conversation inspired.
Yeah. We'll have those links in the show notes. This is episode 1171. And I would love to have you come back. I think I was intentionally trying to, we got a little granular today. We went into a couple little, detailed things, but I know I was tempted to go further, but I would love to have you come back. I would love to like pick a topic and like relative to the world of franchising and really like drill down step by step. And I'd love to be able to reference you and call on you in the future too. I mean, this was a lot of fun. Great stuff today.
Yeah. This, I'm going to have to get a camper and follow you around.
Let's get a convoy going, man.
By the way, this was friggin' amazing. Great time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have to have you call somebody out before we say goodbye. So the last question I ask all my guests is, who do you respect and admire? Somebody who, if I were to get as a guest on the show, you'd be like, this person, I want to hear what they have to say. They're going to blow you away.
So for restaurants, we talked about, I think, Samir at Lane's Chicken, amazing person, amazing individual. Our friends at Mighty Quinn's Barbecue here in the New York City area. We have Salad House over here. Ton of really great restaurant franchisors doing pretty amazing things.
You know anybody in Atlanta, Nashville, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Dallas, Austin, Houston?
Well, Dallas is, that's
Lane's.
That's Lane's in Dallas.
Yeah.
I don't know geography that well.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, man. I literally cannot do what I do without people like you being generous with their time, knowledge, mentorship. You make my work possible. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, keep doing this.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Yeah, and there is no questioning. You are unstoppable. Cheers.